hello everyone. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you might be in a part of the world. You're welcome to our February webinar, um, which promises to be another insightful and very great session. Um, I'm excited. Our guest is here, my very good friend Morin, and she'll be speaking with us on a topic I'm also very passionate about. Um, yeah, so Moira, are you ready? So I think we'd have to read her bio very quickly before I bring her up. So I'll be sharing our screen. Sorry, I would spotlight you first, then share my screen. I have so many. Okay, I found one here. Okay, awesome. So yeah. So I'll be sharing Maurice bio on the screen now. Yeah, okay. Okay, so here today on our February webinar, we have our guest speaker as Morin Akeredolu-Ale. She's a sustainability enthusiast and she's a circular economy researcher. Morin is an evolving environmental consultant, management, research, and development toxicology. She's currently a circular economy research student at the University of Exeter Business School, working on the intersection of regulatory tools, policies, and behavior. She is also the team coordinator of a Converge Green Limited, an emerging digital knowledge and business platform. She previously worked as an environmental scientist at Hove Harroop and Partners Nigeria Limited, Harroop, Nigeria, where she was involved in research in the city resilience, sustainability advisory team, management of environmental impact assessment requirements, and the implementation and audit of the firm's quality and environmental management systems. She enjoys baking. Yes, I can relate to that. Watching movies, sightseeing, and exercising in her leisure time. Thank you so much, Maury. So excited that you're able to make it to be our guest speaker for February, talking on a very, very great topic. So you're welcome. I would invite you to have the floor now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Media, thank you, Clan. Thank you for the invitation. Really glad to be here. I've been following the past webinars, so it's good to get the opportunity to share with us on the circular economy. So just before I get right into it, I would like us to answer a couple of icebreaker questions. It's nothing, I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just something to get us thinking and something to get, our brains warmed up after a long week. So I'll be reading through the questions and you can just, please, you can let me know if you can already see my screen. Is it already up? You're muted.
Yes, your screen is up. Yes, I can see it.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So I'll be reading out the icebreaker questions and I would like us to just please drop your answers in the chat and, just keep it buzzing. There's no wrong or right answer. So let's get to the first one. Who was your childhood actor or actress crush? Okay, question 2. If you had to eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be? I'm not going to tell anybody my own answers to these questions. The third question is, what is your favorite item you've bought in the last 1 year? And question 4, when purchasing an item, do you think about what would happen to it when you have finished using it? Question 5, do you purchase items because they are available or probably because they've been upgraded, or because you need them. When deciding on businesses to embark on, what actually informs your choice? So is it money, making money? Is it based on the needs in your particular location at that point in time? Anything? Is it because you want to solve a particular problem? Just let us know. And the last question is, would you pay a higher price to buy something that would last longer? So you can just drop your answers as per, put the question number. So like 7 would be 7 yes or 7 no, like that. And I would just leave the questions on the screen for like a minute so that we can answer. I'm looking at the chat now. Ramsey Noah. Okay, Clint Eastwood. You guys are not answering. I'm not going to go. I can't see your answers.
I'm typing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hard to pick. Okay. Let me see. Let me drop some of my own answers too, even though I said I wasn't going to. Let me at least drop one.
Number 2.
So I've dropped my crush. Once he was in a movie, that movie had to be watched. It had to be watched. Oh, Omotola, nice. Nice. Chicken and jollof rice. Okay. 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 I haven't seen any answers to 4, 5, 6, and 7. So if you can just get 1 or 2 answers to those, and then we can proceed. Pretty Zinta. Pretty Zinta. Okay. Rice. Okay. 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 Thank you for your answers, Mayank. Perfumes. Okay. Okay, we'll get 1 or 2 more responses and go right ahead. Because I need them. Okay. Okay, let's keep thinking, keep the answers coming. I could probably take a screenshot and drop it in the chat. Or if anyone can do that, that would be really helpful. So that people can share their answers as well. Otherwise, I can always come back to them at some point. Okay, so thank you. So now to the business of the day, circular economy. Of course, it's best to start from what it actually is, right? The aim of this presentation really is to help us understand some of the basics of the circular economy, what it entails, what it means, what it is, what it seeks to achieve, to highlight the benefits that we could get from transitioning to a circular economy, some of the challenges that we might face in the course of this transition, and also to highlight and identify our roles in this transition to a circular economy. The circular economy really is not, the meaning and the idea behind it is not entirely new, but it just recently became a sort of buzz phrase in recent years. And we have some major think tanks that are promoting the idea, and the most popular one would be the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And so to attempt to sort of explain or define the circular economy, it's a systemic improvement on the current linear economic model that we operate. So at the moment, globally and even nationally in Nigeria, what we operate is generally a take, make, and waste economy, where we extract materials or import materials, as the case may be, use this to manufacture different items or to provide different services, and then just basically trash these items or just let them lie fallow in like dump sites, wasting away those resources, basically. So that's what we operate at the moment. But then what the circular economy seeks to do is, so say at the moment, I don't know if you can see this, but it's like it's a piece of paper basically that's like a straight line. It's as simple as it sounds, really. So the circular economy essentially aims to turn the linear model that we run now into one that runs in a circle, right? And in doing this, it lies on three basic principles. The first one is eliminate waste and pollution. Of course, if we're looking to connect the last part of our linear model to the first part of our linear model, so connecting the waste part to the take part, then it means that we're essentially saying that after making, we're going right to take, so there's no waste. And so easy as it sounds, eliminate waste and pollution. So pollution could be in terms of emissions to the atmosphere, or pollution to land, or pollution to water bodies. The second principle on which the circular economy stands is to circulate products and resources. And essentially what this means is to make sure that we keep on moving products, resources, sharing services from one consumer to another consumer, or from the consumer to the producer, until we have completely extracted the full value that we could possibly get from that resource. So continuous circulation of products and resources. And the third principle on which it stands is regenerate nature. So at the moment, the way our economy is run, it's like our business is just, let's take all we can take and make all we can make, not caring about where we're actually getting these resources from. But then the circular economy not only seeks to minimize or cut down on the waste that is produced from that system, but also make sure that we regenerate where we're getting these resources from, right? So not only making sure that we don't destroy it, but even creating opportunities to make it better for our generation and for generations to come after us. The circular economy became popular in Nigeria about 3 years ago, and there has been like a steady increase in awareness, steady increase in initiatives, interventions within the space, even though some of these people who are involved don't even know that that is what they're involved in. And finally, on the basics of the circular economy, I want to believe that we're familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goal, which the circular economy is usually most tied to, is SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. And I believe that from the explanation that I gave, we would understand why. However, down the line in this presentation, we would also see that in addition to achieving SDG 12, the circular economy is also a key tool to achieving so many other of the other sustainable development goals. So why do we need to transition? We've talked about what the transition is. We've talked about what the circular economy is. Why do we need it? So we have different population projections from different bodies that obviously states that the human population is going to continue to increase, even almost at an exponential rate. And there's very little we can do to control this. We also know that at the moment, resource extraction as we are doing it, if continued over the next couple of years, would get to a point where we actually deplete our resources. So if we continue to take without replenishing, without ensuring that we're extracting the maximum value from these resources, it will get to a point where there'll be nothing to take anymore. And because we would already have been used to taking and not replacing, there'll be nothing to use anymore, right? We also have the problem of pollution causing so many different health issues, people not having access to clean water, even air pollution, you know, people having all sorts of different breathing problems from emissions from the economy as we run it at the moment. we also have our very big enemy, climate change and its effects. While some people tend to treat climate change as something that doesn't concern them, the truth is we're now beginning to see and experience its effects right in our houses, and it's only set to increase if we don't do anything about it. I want to believe that everyone here is looking forward to a future where the country operates better, people are happier. Even you as a person, you want to do better. If you're a business person, you want your business to grow. So we all have this quest for development. And a statement from the Federal Ministry of Environment website states that there's a fundamental problem. The country's disposal, recycling, and waste management system is very inefficient, dealing with both plastic and non-plastic waste, most of which ends up in landfills, sewers, beaches, and water bodies. And we see this all the time when we go for cleanups, and when people go around making documentaries of just how dirty the country is. The good news, after all of that bad, gloomy news, is that transitioning to a circular economy is one solid solution to tackling these multiple challenges. It seeks to benefit the society, including you and I. It seeks to benefit businesses, and it seeks to benefit the environment. So just an expansion on that. At the moment, it's almost as if this race for development, for economic prosperity, is competing with the cries of environmental activists or environmental advocates saying, we need to protect the environment and what have you. And it's like the people within industry are saying, keep that environmental protection thing and let me focus on making money. But the good thing is that the circular economy actually seeks to sort of create a win-win situation for everyone, right? So combining the parallel drives of economic prosperity, societal well-being, and environmental protection. So it is definitely out to make sure that we make money, but just out to make sure that we make the money responsibly. So some of the benefits to the environment, of course, would be greenhouse gas reduction. We know that the culprit for man-made climate change is the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that we have. And when we touch more on how the circular economy actually works, we would see that it presents opportunities to reduce the emission of these gases. It also presents opportunities to reduce polluting substances, so reduce the use of synthetic chemicals or non-biodegradable materials. It seeks to reducing the use of non-renewable resources. So for like energy, moving to more renewable sources. It also seeks, it would also enable us to do more to protect our biodiversity, because if we remember, one of the main principles of the circular economy is, restoring nature, keeping nature intact and even improving it. And then finally, decreased waste generation. Of course, if we're looking to, remember the closed loop thing, if we're looking to completely eradicate the waste part, then it means it reduces the headache that we're having now of having to deal with waste generation and waste management. To the economic benefits, we can see this benefits in terms of benefits to businesses and benefits to individuals. So for individuals, of course, with a transition to a new or an improved kind of economy, there will be more opportunities for new jobs, more opportunities to learn new skills and to put those skills into use for valuable income. There's also an opportunity for to have the increased disposable income, in the sense that at the end of the day, first of all, you'll be getting a lot of value for your money and you won't even be spending as much. So those are the economic benefits to the individuals. And then for businesses that are open to transitioning to a circular economy, they would find that it improves their resource efficiency targets, because it will help them to cut on material inputs and things like energy, water, their raw materials, because they are not going to have to keep spending money and resources on extracting these materials from scratch. And it would also reduce import dependency, because the circular economy also seeks to make sure that businesses explore local raw materials, right? And of course, that translates to less dependency on having to import raw materials. And then it also provides an opportunity for competitive advantage. So we would find that for businesses that quickly take up this opportunity of transitioning to a circular economy, they are able to provide value to their customers in a different kind of way that just sets them apart and gives them that competitive advantage within whatever markets they're operating in. And then, of course, the social benefits of the circular economy would be health and well-being. I mean, if you're breathing in cleaner air, you're not having to look down on the ground, being afraid of tripping over something or your head falling into the ditch or something like that, you will generally feel better and be able to come up with even better ideas. And then there's also the issue of equalizing the distribution of resources. When we have that, resources are no longer concentrated within specific spaces, and we create systems where there's more distribution and more circulation of these resources, we're able to, improve on the society, improve on more people having more access to resources that they truly need. So how does the circular economy actually work? I know that this diagram might look a bit complicated or scary, but the main point to note, it's called the butterfly diagram of the circular economy. And what it basically depicts are all the cycles that products and resources would have to go through within a circular economy, right? So it depicts the journeys that products and resources would have to go through from the point of extraction to the point of use. And then it depicts the journeys, the circular journeys that these products and resources would have to go through to be able to, make sure that we keep resources within circulation and minimize waste. So the main points to note would be that generally materials and resources are categorized as being either biological materials or technical materials. So biological materials, very simply put, would be those that would biodegrade, after a length of time. And technical materials would be those that typically wouldn't, and that are typically born out of, synthetic engineering, engineering knowledge. So examples of materials or resources within the biological cycle would be our food, very simple example. An example of resources within the technical cycle would be our mobile phones, cars, plastic packaging, and things like that. So basically, this diagram, as I said before, depicts the initial journey that any product would go through from the point of extraction, right? Either extraction from the farm or from the point of design from the laboratory. And I'll just quickly touch on one or two, just to sort of give some context to what it is I'm saying. So for example, you have your onion farmer, right? Who has, after all the farming work is done, the harvest is done, somehow it gets to the supermarket chains and it gets to you and I, and it's time to cook in our homes. What do? Obviously, you don't just throw in the onion into your pot or anything like that. You end up having to take off the skin of the onion, or it could even be like banana peel, things like that. Now, typically, as we run the economy now, the end of that onion peel or the end of that banana peel is just that it ends up in the bin, and from the bin, it goes to landfill, and that's the end of that. But don't forget that the circular economy is seeking to make sure that we extract the maximum value from every resource. And so in the circular economy, that doesn't happen. It's either that banana peel or that onion peel is being used to generate biogas, which is clean energy, or it's composted and it goes right back to the farmland where it came from in the first place. Now, from the technical side of things, we could take the example of your car, for example. As we run the economy now, you would have people who would probably think, oh, well, I've bought this car, I'm only looking to use it for 2 years, and so I'm only going to take it for servicing maybe once a year. because at the end of 2 years, I'm going to ditch it anyway. But that's not how the circular economy works. The circular economy, on the technical side of things, expects that we would take much more action and put in much more effort to make sure that we prolong the lives of these things. So even if you have bought your car and you mean to use it for just 2 years, the thinking within a circular economy is, I'm using this car for 2 years, but I have to make sure that the value of that car remains the same for whoever is going to use it next. And so actions like maintenance, repairs would be much more encouraged within a circular economy than they are now. Okay. To put it a little bit simply, or in a simpler diagram, there's something called the 9R framework. And I know some of us might have come across the popular 3R: reduce, reuse, recycle. Basically, the 9R framework has built on that to be able to show us what we need to do within the journey from a linear economy to a circular economy. And what we have in this table are different strategies that show how we're actually making progress as we transition from a linear economy to a circular economy. So bottom of the table, which is mostly what we operate now and what we encourage now, we have behaviors like, or strategies like recycling and recovery, energy from waste firms trying to make sure that they generate energy from whatever materials we have before sending the residual waste to landfill, and a lot of noise about recycling. The problem is that at the bottom of this chain, within the linear economy that we operate now, the focus is on what happens when the items have already been purchased. What happens when we have already classed these items as waste? So from there, we're expected to move up to the point where we begin to think of what happens before these items are classified as waste. How we can possibly extend the lifespan of these items. And that's where we have strategies like repurposing, so using things for a different purpose, or remanufacturing, so sending it back to the manufacturer to possibly, take out some old parts, replace it with new parts, and basically extend the life. We have refurbishing, repair, and reuse. Now, in an ideal circular economy, we would even move away from extending, just doing things to extend the life, to design thinking, what actually happens at the point of even starting the manufacturing of this thing? What happens at the point of deciding whether or not to purchase these things? And that's where we move to strategies like reducing. So, really assessing yourself to think, I've been buying 5 of this thing, but at the end of the day, I use 4 and throw 1 away. So you're already thinking at the point of purchase, next time I'm only going to buy 4 because I only need 4. And the same thing goes for businesses, thinking about the best ways to reduce the amount of resources that they use to still maintain the same standard of product. Things like rethinking how we model our businesses, and refusing, right? So completely abandoning the option, deciding not to produce or deciding not to purchase. So I've summarized all this talk into what I like to call the shifts that would power the transition to a circular economy. And the first one is design thinking, right? So right from the point of design of products and services. The second shift is business models, which encourage leasing and sharing over ownership. So in this kind of scenario, businesses begin to focus on how do we make sure that our consumers have access to these things? So the fact that our consumers have access to these things does not necessarily mean they have to own those things. They could lease them. It could be that we create opportunities for them to share it amongst themselves. But the focus is on ensuring that consumers have access to those products or those services. The third shift that would power the transition is value addition through service over products. So when I was talking about the benefits of transitioning for businesses and competitive advantage, for the circular economy to operate really well, it would now be a case of businesses focusing on adding value to their customers through provision of services. So it's not, the focus is no longer how do we make a new version of this thing so that our consumers can buy. No, the focus now becomes how do we make sure that the consumer enjoys using this product? So it could be that the consumer only buys 1 unit of that product, but then what you are selling is the value addition through repair, refurbishing, and just generally helping the consumer to maintain that thing that they have already bought, and generally improving consumer experience. And the fourth is a shift from the waste mindset to a resource mindset. So since we're seeking to eliminate waste, obviously it means that we need to move from seeing things when we are no longer using them as being at their end of life, right? So moving away from thinking of things as being at their end of life to being at their end of use. So the fact that you have finished using them does not mean that's the end of life of that resource. It just means that's the end of your use for that resource, and you're looking for ways to make sure that you plug it back into the economy. And so here are some examples, very random examples of the circular economy already playing in our society today, because as I said, it's not exactly something new. It's just something that needs to be better formalized. So with our individual choices, of course, anytime you choose to use your reusable bottle instead of buying bottled water 3 times in a day, that's already you helping the transition to a circular economy. Anytime you choose to, and I know this is very controversial, wear the same outfit instead of buying another one just because you have worn that one before, that's already you pushing for the transition to a circular economy, because I mean, it's behaviors like this that power the current economy that we run. Within fashion, we already have examples of things like convertible shoes, right? So I know ladies would love this one, where instead of having to go out with your slippers, your sandals, and your heels because you're going for a dinner event, you're going to be in the office, and you also have to walk some distance, you basically just need 1 pair of shoes and you can interchange the heels. That's already moving towards a circular economy, because you're minimizing the amount of resources that will be needed to help you create 3 different pairs of shoes. Just 1 pair of shoes, few materials changed. Within education, I'm not sure if it's still on now, but there was an initiative by Africa Cleanup Initiative where they had encouraged parents of children in low-income families to come to school with like plastic bottles, or basically just plastic materials that could be recycled. And this basically served as payment for school fees for these children. Of course, initiatives like this, it's not as though those bottles are money, but then because organizations like ACI saw the potential for those bottles to be used as feed into creating other products, they were able to make arrangements with recycling companies, arrive at specific costs that would correspond to the fees of these children. So at the end of the day, they are eradicating waste, they are helping these parents make money, they are ensuring that the children go to school. Another example would be within construction. So we have a lot of demolition waste, right? And most of the time, this is just sent to landfill, or just left to fallow without actually putting it into good use. But we have people who are beginning to make decorative pieces, flower pots from this demolition waste. So making sure that the demolition of buildings or whatever infrastructure does not mean that that is the end of life of that concrete. The concrete basically goes into starting another life as a decorative piece or as something for agriculture. And there are so many examples, so many examples. We can't exhaust them all. But yeah, there's a lot already being done, and it's just a case of intensifying this and keying into them. So from all of this, I'm sure we might already begin to see what our roles are within the transition to a circular economy. Government, I don't know if there's government here, but if you have government here, we're all governments actually, but you know what I mean. people within actual offices of, the executive, legislature, and so on. The role for the government at the moment would be to actually prioritize this transition alongside solving other challenges. Because what you find is sometimes when we present this kind of proposals, the feedback you get is, oh, we're trying to eradicate poverty, or we're trying to solve problem XYZ. And it's because they don't yet see the fact that this is a solution. So it's not a different assignment that you are being given. It's a solution which you should actually look into because it would help to solve so many other problems. So prioritizing the transition alongside solving other challenges. Of course, creating regulatory tools and strategies. At the moment in Nigeria, there aren't so many. In fact, at the moment, we don't have circular economy targets. That's the thing. And for the policies or tools that exist, which weren't necessarily created because we wanted to transition to a circular economy, but which actually promotes the transition to a circular economy, it's the government's role to improve on these things. We can suggest what they can do, but at the end of the day, it's still the government's role to actually sign it into law. It's also the government's responsibility to fund research and development. You find that this is how things actually operate in developed nations. So the government finds that there's this problem that the people are facing. We have researchers, whether researchers within industry or researchers within academia. And what they do is they project. So if this problem is costing us XYZ billion naira, and we put in X million naira to fund research, at the end of the day, like it kind of balances out, but I'm not sure our government quite sees it like that at the moment, but honestly, it is their responsibility. And then of course, to pilot interventions, and this is because obviously they have access to a large number of people, right? They are the custodians of where you can do what. So you find certain scenarios where individuals or organizations actually have, the goodwill and they want to pilot some certain interventions, and the government says no. Okay, no problem. You say no because you're trying to protect the citizens, but you should also want to solve the problem. And so you go ahead and pilot the interventions, right? Yeah, so that's that for government. For businesses and organizations in general, so industry, civil society organizations, and so on, there are already a lot of businesses within the resource management sphere in the country. And of course, their role is to continue the good work, share best practices. We don't really see this happening enough. So it's not enough to just do the work, but it's important to share best practices so that everyone can kind of level up and just improve generally on what they're doing. It's important for them to take stock. I know that at the moment, some of them run like manual stock taking, which might not necessarily be the best, but at least they're already doing that. So it's just important to improve on this, take stock, and share the data that they have for governments to be able to plan and set targets. Manufacturers and service providers can form like industry-focused groups that would enable them to collectively invest in research and development for alternative materials and even for market research. So, stakeholders within the construction industry, for example, could come together and fund specific market research. What sort of buildings are people looking for? What are the most important things to people in a building? Okay, if we replace this current material with this one that is circular, would people still be able to get what it is that they're looking for out of their office buildings, right? And then, financial institutions, that one is pretty simple. We already have some financial institutions that actually lend their voice to like sustainability issues and even to funding initiatives within the circular economy. And their role would be to be a bit more flexible to providing this funding so that more people will be encouraged to try out their interventions. And of course, within academia, what we have now is almost like a disjoint between research and development. The people in the schools and our professors and the students, we're all just doing our own research in one corner. and development is just going on. So the role of academia is, if the government is not coming to meet you to ask you for solutions, you make sure that your own research is solving actual problems. You make sure that your own research is going to help to push this transition, because the time will come when they will then need this information. And that won't be the time to start doing the research, right? So from now, it's just a case of encouraging people within academia to try as much as possible to tailor their research to forward-thinking initiatives, risky things, but it's always worth it in the end. And of course, individuals, you and I, whether you're professional or not, it's important to educate yourself, as we're doing now. Educate yourself, educate others around you, and just be open to change. Be open to making commitments and keeping to those commitments. Share the things that you do. Don't be ashamed of anything you're doing within the transition to a circular economy. Join and identify with relevant communities. So that said, a quick look into like the existing national and continental groups working on the transition to a circular economy. There's actually a Nigeria Circular Economy Working Group, which was commissioned in July 2020. Till date, not much has been done, or at least there's not a lot of information available online on work that has been done. But the main agenda of this group is to design the Nigeria Circular Economy Program and Roadmap. And they already have a lot of partners. So at the moment, what we need is not new organizations per se. It's a case of finding where you fit within these partners that already exist in the Nigeria Circular Economy Working Group, and support whatever it is that is being done within those groups. Before the Nigeria Circular Economy Working Group was launched, there was already the Africa Circular Economy Alliance, and this was basically the national governments of different African countries coming together to paint a picture of what transitioning to the circular economy looks like for Africa. So if you're interested in that, you can by all means look that up. And then there's the World Circular Economy Forum, which is basically an opportunity for different stakeholders from different countries to come together and share best practice, challenges, solutions, and things like that. And interestingly, the most recent one in 2022 took place in Africa, and it had quite a bit of Nigerian representation. So it's good that that's already happening. As I said before, we don't really have circular economy targets at the moment, but we do have some national regulatory tools and strategies. The most popular one is the extended producer responsibility. And basically what extended producer responsibility seeks to do is to make sure that the manufacturers at the point of their production already know that they're going to take responsibility for what happens when people are no longer using those products. So within Nigeria, the overall objective of the EPR program, which exists, is to ensure a decrease in the total environmental impact from a product, including its packaging. And we have so many operators within this space. We have the producers themselves, we have producer responsibility organizations, we have our numerous, beautiful, amazing recyclers and collectors. Yeah, and the only other tool, which I think we have at the moment, would be bans, which is not even solidified yet. So I know in 2019, there was talk about plastic bag ban, but apparently it was a bill that was passed then, so it hasn't actually to law. But please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Now, the whole point of pointing this out is, if at the end of the day, this is going to be passed into law, it's important to make sure that we are already prepared for bans like this. We're already prepared for this sort of regulatory tools, because we know how we sometimes operate. The planning isn't done well, the ban comes and it's like, how am I going to survive without a plastic bag? How am I going to sell my goods without a plastic bag? So it's just important for us to keep in mind the ongoing tools and strategies that are being developed by the government. So to the challenges, I mean, in all of this, we must have already begun to identify the problems that we might face. So if I want to recycle more, for example, I'm sure you're already thinking, no, there's no collector. near my house or something like that. For the government, the first major challenge is the fact that we don't have targets yet. And the fear that monitoring, when we eventually have targets, might not be solid and transparent, or that it might be poorly planned. For business, the major challenge is the expertise for this transition. So, I mean, as a business, of course, you want to make money, you don't want to lose money. So the fear at the moment is, first of all, we don't even know what it would take for our businesses to transition, and we're not sure that at the end of the day, we're going to make profits. So that kind of holds people back from going ahead to jumping on the transition. The third one is the actual uptake of secular behaviors, especially by individuals, right? We have barriers like culture. So if there was a business to be developed now that was supposed to encourage sharing of clothes, because of the culture that we already have, where I mean, if you're sharing clothes with people that are not your family members, it's seen as maybe you don't have money or you're low status. But that really isn't what it is, right? It's just a case of how culture has shaped us so far. So these sorts of barriers are also part of, what discourages people from uptaking secular behaviors. And there are so many others, but I'm more interested in hearing what you guys think might be missing. Of course, funding is very important. Funding in the sense that poverty is a very serious issue in Nigeria at the moment. And typically, when you want to tell anybody anything that is not immediately bringing them money, it's almost like an automatic barrier, right? So obviously, it's important to solve the poverty problem before attempting um, to solve the poverty problem generally, and take it seriously in the whole scheme of trying to design our roadmap for transitioning to a circular economy. And then I think the final one I would like to highlight is data, the fact that we don't have data for planning, and the fact that the data that we do have at the moment is not centrally controlled. Few suggestions for overcoming these challenges. I've already shared some of them. I think the only one not mentioned at the moment is self-measurement, right? So we can start from self-measurement, begin to pay more attention to what it is you buy and take note of these things, so that when the researchers or government officials do come to ask these questions in trying to sort of draft solutions, you are able to give them credible data that they can work with. Obviously, tech has a major role to play within all of this. The role of tech would be, information dissemination, assisting with research and all of that. And of course, funding. As I said, it's important for us to partner with already existing initiatives that are working towards eradicating poverty at the moment, so that people can begin to take steps that might not necessarily bring them immediate income. So I'm happy to hear any others that you have. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, I'm open to comments, questions.
Thank you so much, Morin. Thank you for this very, 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 very rich. Honestly, it's like a master class. Don't say I've started, but this was like a master class on circular economy, and it was really very loaded. So, and that's why I call you prof. So yeah. So please, does anyone have questions, comments, or contributions? Like, I've learned so much from this presentation today. So if you have questions for Maury, if you have some suggestions, some contributions or
Yeah, suggestions
comments,
welcome.
yeah. So you can unmute or you can type in the chat box or raise your hand. Anyone? Anyone? Questions, comments, contributions? Okay, looks like people are well saturated and satisfied with with all the details that they got today. But okay, maybe I should ask. Okay, there's someone here. Okay, recycling of old clothes can also be used for handbag products like tote bags. Uh, okay, that's like it. Oh, Mori, you're muted. Are you trying to say something?
Sorry, I was just agreeing with the person.
Oh, okay,
Repurposing,
okay,
yes, yes, yes,
okay,
yes,
nice.
definitely. So using
Okay,
old clothes for yeah, yeah.
yeah, I have a comment or maybe like
Okay.
a suggestion around food waste. It looks like currently in Nigeria,
Ah, yeah.
there's a lot of focus on plastic, but food waste is another major challenge that we have. But I'm not sure in Nigeria currently there is a particular bin or
Food
a way
waste
that people
collector.
separate, yeah, food waste collector. So,
Um,
um, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the closest to that that I think we have at the moment um is not okay. So two things I think we have at the moment with regards to tackling food waste, either preventing it or dealing with it when it has already happened.
Mm,
The first would be, I know that there are some like composting companies
okay.
that take, I mean, they mostly get their feedstock from farms actually, so not from homes but from farms. So if
Oh,
businesses or organizations like that could basically expand or scale their operations to not just collecting from farms, but also collecting from homes, then I mean, that would be very helpful. The other thing I've come across is something called Chowberry. So
mm,
it's an app that basically helps to redistribute food. So if you have like excess, I don't know, excess mangoes or
mm,
something, there will be someone else on the app who needs those mangoes. So instead
mm,
of you just leaving the mango to waste or throwing it away or something like that,
mm.
basically all you need to do is, connect with that person. The person gets the mangoes and zero waste. So yeah, things like that.
Nice. Awesome. I
Yeah.
also like the point you mentioned about design thinking or design. That's actually been an area that I've been thinking about of like how the raw materials that are used in processing or manufacturing some of these products, what happens when they are making that decision from the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right from the start, right from the start. I mean that's the ultimate key. Before it even gets into the market, before you provide that service, before you buy that item, right from the start, design thinking. And I think another application of design thinking is also like within the construction industry, for example. And I'm
mhm,
giving this example because, well, that's where I have some experience. Um, so there's this thing called design for disassembly, which basically means that within the design, you're not even only thinking about the materials that you're using for the construction.
mm,
You're thinking about the way you are designing the building such that when it is time to disassemble the building,
mm,
what we call demolition now, when it's
mm,
time to disassemble the building, is done in such a way that it will be difficult to have something wasted,
mm,
right? So you're able to take apart the parts
mm,
for use somewhere else. But that's only because at the point of design, you already thought about what will happen when that building will no longer be used.
mm.
Yeah, so I think that's another application of design. Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very broad and interesting. And I think it's very exciting the fact that everybody has a role to play. Like definitely it's not one man's work. It doesn't matter who you are. You're an individual before you're anything. You're an individual before you're a lawyer. You're an individual before you're an accountant. So, I mean, we have parents, children, teachers,
Mm,
non-profits,
yeah.
everyone gets
Yeah.
to be part of this. I think that's the most exciting part of it for me.
Awesome. So we have someone's hand raised. Um, yeah, you can please unmute. Is your mom? Okay. Oh, you can unmute and ask ma.
Yes.
Hello ma. You can unmute and ask. Okay, let me ask her to unmute.
Oh, yes,
Uh,
probably
It
okay,
needs
was
okay.
to.
because you didn't let me unmute myself. Thank
Oh,
you
sorry.
very much. Well, I would like first to thank Morin for that presentation. And then I'd like to thank Clan Initiative for this. But something I notice is that we need to create more awareness. We need to create more awareness on this issue of the circular economy. For example, I go to the market. Well, Morin knows that. And when I go, I don't ask for plastic bags. And the market women are usually surprised and say something like, so how do you want to carry what you have bought? So I then bring out my bag from reusable bags. But it's like they're always surprised that this one is not asking for a bag. And sometimes I take my time to educate them. And that's why I'm addressing a Clan Initiative that whatever you can do to make sure that this awareness goes down to the bottom. It reaches the people in the local and rural areas. People right at the bottom, because if we do not, it's going to take Nigeria a long time to hook on to this circular economy of a thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this, ma. It's well noted, and I believe the members of Clan Initiative will start taking serious measures on creating awareness on circular economy. Thank you so much for that. We have Oluwakemi. I think we can only take one more question after Oluwakemi. You can unmute Oluwakemi and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Morin, for the presentation. But for what Mommy just said, I just want to add that apart from the awareness, I think from policy point of view, just like you mentioned, there also has to be a lot of buying in. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. Buying in the sense that, well, we call in social sciences, we call it lobbying. But sometimes some of these things need a lot of buying in, a lot of lobbying, apart from the advocacy, creating the awareness, because even if people that are going to pass the policy or legislation, they are not boughting themselves, they will not see any reason why it should be an issue, or why do you think that we should foster it, or we should try to encourage it. So I think you also have to do a lot of buying in. At least it might not be a general one, one-on-one, for people that you can talk to, people that have a form of influence in legislation and things like that. I think that one will also go a long way to also help us. Apart from the awareness, to even buying in with the local people too, goes a long way. And local people in the sense that by the time you are bought in, their leaders, community leaders, community heads, you understand what I'm saying? You are already buying in. You're already in the legislation, because that's the grassroots. Those are the people that actually need it. Because even sometimes when you go to the market, you don't need to ask for it. Even without asking for some of these take-home bags, they will give you free of charge. So it's part of the package. It comes with the package. So a lot of buying in from our legislators, and even apart from that, our local leaders, our opinion leaders, our community leaders, people of influence at the local level, at community level, market women, head of market, head of butcher, things like this will also go a long way to help us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you for another very, very brilliant suggestion and contribution. Yeah.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma. I think we can take one more before we wrap up for this month's webinar. Does any other person have question, comments before we go? Okay, I think Kayode Ogunjobi wants to say something.
Okay, thank you. I think I really enjoyed participating in this presentation, and I must commend Morin for doing a good job. I'm particularly happy that she created a link with almost every aspect of human endeavor. And I was happy when she went into the area of climate change, and what have you, which is a critical issue globally now. And that tells us that, because I was expecting to hear what she wanted to say, when I had circular economy, I was wondering circular economy, and that triggered my interest in the presentation. And basically, the presentation has touched every aspect. Like I was thinking, no, perhaps there was something I submitted yesterday, and I was thinking if I've had this, maybe there's an aspect I would have included in the submission. Talking about ensuring that we maximize our waste. I did more with forestry. I know we have sawdust, and I was submitting something about creation of wealth from waste. And she was about going into that, and that means this is something we should all be interested in, and I think we need to develop more awareness. I'm beginning to see that we can even include it in some of us that are teaching the university in our curriculum. If it cannot be part of the synopsis, it can be a sub theme within the synopsis, so that students right from the undergraduate level can begin to learn some of these things to improve our livelihood. Because we know if the livelihood is better, Nigeria will also be better. And finally, somebody was talking about waste in Nigeria. I think we are far behind. Right from, I know even in the early 2000s, there were researches that were conducted even in some states in Nigeria. And between that 2000 and now, I cannot say that there has been an appreciable difference. I know around 2003, 2005, 2007, some state governments were trying to take up some initiatives. But immediately after those, after those governors completed their tenure, I think we went back to the old thing. So with this, if we go for policy enhancements, policy change, paradigm in our changing paradigm in our livelihood approach, I think you would have achieved something for us as a people. And I think God will help you. Thank you very much. Congrats, Morin. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for
Thank you. Thank you
that
so much.
those comments and contributions. All right. Thank you. I like what Morin puts on the final slide, or the slide before this, that says, what would you do different this weekend? Now that you have heard, so now that you have heard about circular economy, what would you do differently starting this weekend? What other challenges come to mind and how might you overcome them? So let's think about all these things and go out there to make a difference. So on behalf of Clan Initiative, we say thank you for making our time to join our February webinar. It's a monthly series, so next month we'll have another very insightful topic that we'll be talking about that affects the environment and public health. So thank you for joining. Thank you so much, Morin. Thank you for making out time. I know you
Thank
are
you for
very
having
busy,
me.
and thank you for making out time and presenting a very, very, very rich sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are very grateful for coming, and to all of our participants, we thank you, and see you next month. See you on our next webinar
See
in
you next
March.
month.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.